Hello, my name is Michael Schmitz, and now I will be giving you my presentation on the beautiful South American nation of Argentina. Enjoy. Introduction. Argentina is a beautiful country with many amazing things for visitors to see. It is my country of birth, and I am very privileged to have been able to have visited there many times. It is a nation with an illustrious culture and a great sense of community. But its history has been riddled with ups and downs, with hardships and great successes. It's been a tumultuous story of a nation that was once one of the richest in the world, and that is now notorious for corruption and depravity, and it has undergone an economic downfall of catastrophic proportions. Argentina's history begins like that of all other Latin American nations with Spanish colonization after the discovery of the New World. Argentina was discovered by Europeans during a search for a passage to the Pacific Ocean. Spanish presence was not as prevalent in Argentina during colonial times as it was in other Spanish colonies. The city of Buenos Aires was founded in 1536 by Pedro de Mendoza in Rio de la Plata, which was along the Camino Real, and which allowed for transportation of mineral wealth from Bolivia to Rio de la Plata. Throughout the 17th and 18th centuries, the Mapuches, a prominent American Indian group, gradually began conquering aboriginal populations from La Pampa and Patagonia. The Spaniard made continual progress from the east of their territory. Contact between Spanish settlers and Indians led to the birth of the Gauchos. Spain settled down the Rio de la Plata Viceroyalty in 1776. This territory would later become Argentina. Argentina's economic development is one rooted in an emphasis on being like Europe, or more specifically, looking to Europe as the model for how to progress as a nation. The Argentine government succeeded in attracting huge waves of European immigrants through a government policy that was in effect until 1930, which allowed for able-bodied Europeans of all ethnic backgrounds to enter the country. The people of Buenos Aires and the oligarchy, who were mainly rich hacienda owners, were more loyal to Europe than to Argentina itself. Liberal ideas became the basis for Argentina's government reforms, which emphasized unrestricted immigration, the goal of which was to provide a cheap rural labor force for the nation to gestate into a powerful economy. The Argentine Pampas was one of the world's richest agricultural regions. This gave Argentina fantastic potential to become a strong economy in the world. The labor force that was hoped to be attained from European immigration was thought by the Argentine government to be the key to utilizing the Pampas to reach Argentina's potential of becoming a strong agricultural economy. In 1876, President Nicolas Avellaneda signed the Immigration and Colonization Act, which established a system by which land could be equally distributed to specific groups of European immigrants who would work the virgin lands, which were in areas of low population density in Argentina. This law created the General Department of Immigration and Offices, which were in charge of directing the placement of immigrants to different parts of Argentina. Agencies were also opened in Europe, which advertised the good things about Argentina to encourage European immigration. The rights and duties of an immigrant were established for the first time through this law. This was meant to make the immigrant an owner of a small or medium amount of rural land. By 1920, Argentina was the largest exporter of corn and beef in the world, and was second or third in wheat exportation. A prominent liberal from the 19th century, Juan Bautista Alberdi, was very fervent in his pro-European ideals. He wanted to literally populate Argentina not with its native people, but with the civilized races of Europe. These kinds of liberal ideals led Argentina to take action that made it the South American country that attracted the most European immigrants. Alberti's ideas were very important in shaping Argentina, and he once wrote a constitutional proposal to the Federal Constitution of 1853. This shows how deeply these ideals of being like Europe were ingrained into Argentina as a nation. Argentine writers and intellectuals specifically preferred Northern Europeans, who they felt would be more effective in their quest to whiten the mestizo population of Argentina, more so than Southern or Eastern Europeans would. Northern Europeans were more drawn to other regions of America, however, where they had more cultural commonalities, the United States being a prime example. A sense of nationalism didn't form to unite the Argentine people until late in the country's history. A form of nationalism that wasn't constructive began to form among the Argentine people in opposition to foreigners and foreign influence. Nationalism in Argentina began to really form in the 20th century and formed most predominantly among the middle and lower classes. They viewed figures like the gaucho, an Argentine cowboy who was usually mixed race, and criollo, people with European ancestors who were born in America, as those who truly represented Argentine nationalism. This fueled their opposition to foreign money and influence, which in turn fueled a sense of nationalism among them. By 1895, a staggering 72 out of 100 inhabitants of Argentina were foreigners with different origins. Government corruption has been an extremely detrimental problem for Argentina. Throughout Argentina's economic decline, it has become just as famous for the rampant corruption that has afflicted its government in the past few decades as it was for its once strong economy. Argentina's notorious and insidious government corruption can be traced back to Juan Domingo Perón, who was elected president democratically in 1946, and took measures to consolidate his power and become a military dictator. Perón ruled Argentina with an iron fist through his Peronist political machine that has de facto ruled Argentina for the 7 decades since his reign. Perón imposed many ineffective and economically damaging measures, such as nationalizing industries, establishing ineffective state-owned enterprises, imposing Marxist-like ideals like import substitution policies, creating a government monopoly on all exports. Perón also imposed typical measures to oppress opposition like any dictator would, namely jailing political opponents and censoring media that criticized him. According to an annual index of corruption levels published by Transparency International, Argentina ranks a woeful 57th out of 91 countries, worse than countries like Botswana, Namibia, and Peru. The effects of Perón's legacy can be clearly seen as a cause for this rampant state of corruption. Perón caused a decline in the tenure of justices in Argentina's Supreme Court. When Perón first took office in 1946, the Supreme Court justices could serve 12-year terms. Since then, the average tenure has dropped below 4 years. Before Perón took power, it was often the case that the majority of the court was appointed by a president from the political opposition. Perón changed this, and since Perón left the presidency, 5 of 17 presidents have appointed every member of the court during their term. This made the Supreme Court a puppet to the president and the executive branch. Recently, after the election of President Mauricio Macri in 2015, significant attempts at combating corruption have been made by Macri and his administration. In the past few months, 5 prominent former officials, among them a vice president and a former planning minister, were taken into custody to wait to be put on trial for corruption charges. President Macri has vowed to upend Argentina's culture of impunity, engraft cases through a reformation of the penal code, bringing about greater transparency of government contracting, and the careful tracking of the assets of public servants. Gerván Garavano, the Justice Minister of Argentina, is quoted as saying, "Never in the history of Argentina have we had as many important people detained." Garavano raises the important question of whether this new attempt to crack down on corruption represents a long-term change in Argentina, a significant reform, or simply a spur-of-the-moment reaction to a public outcry. In retrospect, everything that I've researched about Argentina has made me realize that it is a nation with a lot of potential that has shown brightly at times, particularly when it was one of the most successful economies in the world. But its economic downfall, in the midst of an ominous storm of corruption, is a cautionary tale of how even the most successful countries can fall from their laurels. Argentina's story of decline through rampant government corruption reminds me of how government corruption has afflicted other nations of Latin America that I've learned about in this course. The tale of Argentina is one that should serve as an example to all countries to be wary of corruption and government tyranny, and the nefarious direction that they may lead a nation down. I think that the future of Argentina will be either bright or continue down the path of decline that it has been for decades, depending on whether or not the people of Argentina become serious about combating corruption and bringing about its end in Argentina. After doing this project and taking this course, I now have a much deeper understanding of Argentina and Latin America in general, in terms of how Latin America has developed and what it needs to do to see a brighter tomorrow.